And recording. Hello, hi, welcome, salutations, greetings. Happy New Year. Welcome to Research Methods, words that strike love and affection and anticipation in all that hear them. I know that. I am going to try to make a case, though. I know this is not a class most folks look forward to, and a lot of people, particularly going into something like psychology, often think, I'm not going to be a researcher or an experimental person. This isn't really relevant. Untrue. And I'm going to be making the case over the next many weeks about that. So real quick, just thank you for watching this. I'm sorry to be like, you need to watch this and all that sort of thing, but I always make these trying to touch on all the important things, anticipate questions, and obviate issues down the road. And then I'll post it, and then a week later I'll look and it's like, you have 3 views, and then I have 174 emails that are asking all the questions of what I said in the damn video. So thank you. Anyway, so I'm me. Hello. I will be, I guess, steering the ship this term. I'm Christopher Collins. I am an experimentalist. My area is behavioral neuroscience and comparative animal behavior. So I do research with all kinds of species, from fish to pigeons to rats to dogs to monkeys to freshmen, the latter being the most frightening of them all. At any rate, that's kind of my area, so you'll maybe notice some of that in terms of what I bring to the course and my ideas and examples and things like that. But to the sort of content of the course, one of the things, most all of you should have had statistics by now, or maybe you're taking it contemporaneously. When I teach stats, I usually try to say right at the front end that I don't anticipate, even for the best, most shining student with the A+++ at the end of the term, that kind of a course, I don't anticipate like 2 months from then running into that person, being able to just sit them down and say, great, run a paired samples t-test. That's not really realistic, and it's not really what you kind of take away from that. Hopefully it makes it more understandable to kind of relearn it and kind of understand where it comes from. But honestly, it's more about, after that course, can you read a scholarly, peer-reviewed academic paper and get down to the results section and not just have your eyes glaze over and skip down to their discussion, but actually go through the results, see what kind of an analysis that they did, look at these weird letters and numbers and symbols, and be able to be like, okay, I understand an F value, they performed an ANOVA, and this is the P value, that was the probability of the outcome, it was at this level, and here was the effect size, and at least be able to have an intuitive sense, even if you're not super savvy with them. And that's kind of the same thing here. We are going to get into the minutia of design and methods and sampling and measurement, because that's what we do in a course like this. But at the end of the day, I don't anticipate seeing you in a few months and saying, great, sit down now, explain to me how does the difference work of the within comparison versus the between and a factorial design, blah, 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 that sort of thing. But what I do hope comes from it more than anything, and this is within our discipline, this is within every academic discipline, this is within science, but this is within society writ large. What I hope we take away from this more than anything is critical thinking tools. That is, we are in, we kind of get, we're given a hard time now and again in psychology, behavioral sciences, social sciences, is kind of being the soft sciences, compared to physics and chemistry and even biology, where the methods are much more straightforward. The labs are extraordinarily controlled, the variables are profoundly precise and controlled, and you have this incredible ability to isolate, causes and effects and do experimentation. Not so clear in our world. I have it easier than most, working usually with non-human animals. I include freshmen in that group. But when working with humans, which is most of what we're talking about in our discipline, and especially with constructs, things like personality, intelligence, emotion, depression, like these words that we use, like what the hell do you actually mean, right? Try to pin someone down and really explain precisely what is depression. How do you measure depression? How do you know when depression has been alleviated or worsened? These are hard topics, actually, and we're going to spend a lot of time in the weeds going through all of that. But the fundamental piece, no matter if we're doing experimental, correlational, quasi-experimental, surveys, real-world naturalistic, I mean, it doesn't matter in any of these cases. Even though we're called a soft science, what that means is the questions are harder. And that means our methods and our rigor and our thought processes have to be that much more sophisticated. We've got to get pretty clever, actually, to try and even begin to construct research that has meaningful, substantive, and reliable outcomes. And so we're going to go through all these methods. We're going to go through it. Really, what this is an exercise in logic, in rational thinking, ratiocination, working through very deliberately, very rigorously, and very intentionally, isolating the questions that we have, finding methods and measurement tools to try and tap into those things. The recognition that even the simplest behavior, cognitive process, feeling, whatever we're trying to get at, is so profoundly complicated and is surely the result of multifarious different kinds of variables that we've got to dive deep in order to try and really refine our ability to even ask these questions. And then even when we can get to that point and do a wonderful experiment, get a terrific outcome, and send it out into the world for publication, then we have to get into that world of evaluating the literature. What is the peer review process, and what does it mean to get something published in a peer-reviewed scholarly journal? Does the paper itself being published actually suggest at something, or is it an anomalous thing? Very frequently, it is. The news, you wouldn't know that from popular media because they clasp onto any study that's coming out that sounds interesting, which at the end of the day makes it sound like we don't know what the we're doing. I'm starting a rant. Simmer down, simmer down. But how to get into the corpus of the literature, to get into the body of work on these topics, and to evaluate them, to be able to evaluate the methods and to evaluate the outcomes, to pick up on the trends, to understand what constitutes more anomalies, but then also to pick up on the patterns, the emergent properties of what the literature overall tells us. And from that, we begin to get a clearer picture from various methods, from all different corners of forms of research, sampling, populations. All of these come together to give us sort of the body of literature. I will lay off there because I could wax poetic all night, but the last thing I will add to that is this is not just in our world of academia. It's not just in the sciences. The precise skills that we're talking about here, the rigor, the critical thinking, is exactly the kind of thing, now I'm getting on my soapbox, but it's exactly the kind of stuff we need in our lives. Now more than ever, we are bombarded by information. Some of it's disinformation, some of it's misinformation, some of it's flat ass wrong, some of it's half true, some of it's objectively true and real. And how the hell do we sift through all of this to make sense of? I'm not going to start pushing on particularly hot button topics right now because somehow politics and religion and culture and all manner of things provide a lens whereby we all come with these biases. So my desperate hope of hopes is that, if anything, we all walk away from this more equipped to think critically, to evaluate information, demand evidence, and then know what to do with that, in an intellectual way. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Let's get to the nuts and bolts. That's what we really need to know about. I know right now you're being syllabused to death this week, and that 90% of what is in the syllabi and in the introductory Canvas stuff is just this, you just gloss over. It's accommodations and student conduct and blah, 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 blah. So let's actually get to the moving parts of the course. I will come back to each of these as we start to move along, because as I indicated earlier, there are a lot of moving parts to this class. So I want to give you a flyover here to get a feel for those things, and then as we keep moving along, I will continue to clarify there. The first thing that I want to mention, not just because it's important, because it also is kind of affecting the rollout of the course right now. We're making a big move. You're maybe aware of this. We're trying very hard to move away from the traditional publishing corporate, massive corporate textbooks that I know how much you pay for those. That's how much I paid for them too. But that's why we're bringing in now all of these open source items that are digitized. Our textbook that we're starting with this term, first time around for myself with it, is a open source digital ebook. And of course, the wonderful thing about that is it's completely free. So no book to buy, no platform to buy, none of that sort of stuff. Our textbook, I have the links in Canvas. You should be able to find those. You can download it. It's just a big PDF that constitutes our textbook. And so that's good news. Now for the slight cut in the other direction, which is given that it is a completely new textbook to this course, everything about this course had been built around a previous textbook. So what I've done is at this stage, if you kind of look through the end of the syllabus, for instance, and see the way that we've laid out the modules and the weeks and how things are going to go, instead of having a nice linear chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, on down the line, the chapters kind of jump around a little bit. And I'll try to continue to kind of remind you of that, because the way the course flows and the way that our projects unfold, everything that we're going to be moving forward with, just isn't in the same chronology the way that this new textbook is. So there's going to be a little jumping around, and that's not ideal, but it's certainly not something we can't overcome. We can figure that one out reasonably well. The only thing that I think I want to add on to that is just that you might notice as you're getting into the course and you're kind of looking at some of the things within the modules and things that are typed out. I'm still in the process. There's like 8 gazillion different places where places make references to the book or to a page or to a this or a that, 5 billion links and all that, and I'm trying to get every single one of those fixed for us. But I know myself well enough to know, someone's going to be picking up, you missed something here, this link isn't good, what the hell are you talking about here? That's from the previous book. So I'm doing my best, I swear, to take care of all those and get them fixed and have it be as smooth as possible. But just know, if you stumble across something, it seems out of place, doesn't make sense, it probably doesn't. And just give me a shout and we'll get it taken care of. And comes with the territory, right? So the next thing, the next big thing, in addition to the PDF that is our textbook for the course that you will want to find right away in Canvas, is the workbook that constitutes all of our labs. So you should find that in the start here. There's a link. It's a shared Google Doc. So when you get into it, it should provide explanation of how you download, get your version, how you share it with me, so that as you work on it, I can also access it. And in a nutshell, what we're going to be doing over this term is kind of two tracks that run parallel but are kind of their own entities. On the one side, we have sort of your typical survey level undergraduate course where we have our textbook and we're going to be doing the readings and we're going to be doing things associated with the topics that are happening in those chapters and how things are unfolding. And of course that will lead to, I'll get to down the road here, we do have 2 exams. So there'll be the first section of the text and the work and the stuff that we're going through, and the first midterm will reflect that information. Then we'll continue through the rest of the stuff towards the end of the term. After week 10, we go into finals, and then there'll be the final exam that also covers basically this kind of normal textbook driven side of the course, the terms and the concepts and the all the things you would anticipate in a normal class like this. So I'll come back to the exams and some of that in a second. Our other track is the applied side of this. So you maybe already know this about this course, but in a very small period of time, we're in week 1 now of a 10-week course with the 11th tacked on for finals. We're going to come up with a research idea, each and every one of you, go into the literature and start to explore some of what is out there, what's been published, what is kind of the state of the art in the area of your interest. As you start to get a feel for what's out there, what have they found, particularly how have they done it, right? What were these designs like? Who did they work with? How did they define their variables? How did they ask the question? What were the procedures? All of these things are going to start to give you a sense for what that little corner of the world, how they function, what they're finding, how they do it. And from that, you're going to basically come up with your own small, but your own project. You're going to get a feel for how they've done some of the research prior. You're going to come up with your own kind of next logical question that sort of follows from what you're finding and reading about. And we're going to design a study. We're going to use the methods, figure out how are we going to measure this variable? How is it going to be defined? What population are we going to work with, and how are we going to sample them? What are the methods that we're going to use to obtain these data? Then we're going to implement it, get the data, analyze it, and then we're going to put it all together at the end. I told you there's some moving parts to this thing. And at the end, it will be put together partially as a poster, a professional style poster, the kind of thing that one would take to a conference with a thesis or a dissertation or something like that. And you'll be doing the full paper, an APA style research paper, replete with all of the parts that we know and love, or if you don't yet know and love them, you will come to in these weeks going forward. It's a lot. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot. But that being said, we do it in a completely logical, stepwise fashion. So this lab manual that I made reference to, the culmination at the end, of course, is the project and the paper and the poster. To get there, we're going to be going through weekly series of labs. That lab manual is what contains the step by step progress that we're going to make along the way, from start to finish. So we break it up into those components, and it's still a lot of work. Again, I'm not going to lie to you here, but it's workable, right? It's laid out. As long as we're sort of keeping on track and doing the things that we need to do over the course of time, it becomes a very, very achievable thing that we do. And one that I know that on this end, it's hard to sell it to you, but I can assure you most people who come out the other side of this feel profoundly accomplished, or very, very happy and proud of their work. And it goes a long way towards even graduate programs and having writing samples, understanding a lot of this stuff. Many students who go through this course with me and go through this process, I go on to write really great letters of recommendation when they go on to graduate school and things like that. So it is work, it will take time, and it will take energy. There's all those pieces involved, but it's a profoundly worthwhile endeavor, and it's a really important component of your training here in this program. So more on that as we go. I'm not going to flood you. I'm already flooding you with stuff here. So let's get on to the other little pieces that I mentioned here. The poster I won't really talk about now. That is all the way at the end and is basically something we're going to put together along with the paper when everything is sort of complete. So that's more to come down the line. There are discussion forums in the class as well. And these discussions are in the same vein of what I was just describing. They are moving right alongside precisely what we're doing in the lab manual, which the readings should be supplementing and conceptually feeding into what we're working on, what we're talking about. So we have the discussion forums where we have the conversation, we're collaborating, we're going back and forth. People are helping you, answering your questions, you're looking at other people's, providing advice, observations, whatever. We're all gonna be diving in this together. And so those discussion forums are going to be very important places where we all kind of come in and check in with each other. Some of us have a predisposition to kind of want to go it alone. Nobody's going to be faulted if you're the type that kind of prefers to be on your own time, on your own project. I get that. But we still need you at least coming to participate in the discussion forums, even if you're not that interested in the feedback and stuff like that. We need that engagement, one way or the other. So we'll start to talk about those here soon, because each one's going to look a little different depending on where we're at in the process, what the steps that we're going through and trying to accomplish at the time are. But we'll be spending quite a bit of time in there, ideally, talking to one another about things. Quick about the exams then too. So we have the two. There's a midterm, there's a final. They should be completely unsurprising to you if you've had any kinds of undergraduate courses at this point, especially online like this. So they are within Canvas. They are proctored. And so if you've been here at OSU within the last year, almost 2 years now, I suppose, we've been using a program called Proctorio. If you are familiar and have used Proctorio, great, we should be all good to go. If you are new to Proctorio, that is fine. In the Start Here section, there's a whole page, descriptions, links, tests you can run, the download, all the information should be there. And I know you're overwhelmed already right now getting started, but it's something you're going to want to do sooner rather than later. I don't want to tell you how many times it gets to 11:45 p.m. on the Sunday night before it's due, and I start getting emails saying, "What's Proctorio?" So don't do that. They are exclusively multiple choice questions, and you probably know when you do those in Canvas, they are immediately graded. You get the feedback. Here's what was right. Here's what was wrong. Here's your score. The one thing I want to say right now, and I'll remind you of this as we move along further, I am very OCD. I'm very obsessive when it comes to grades, things like that. So when you get that exam, you get to the end and it says, "Here's your grade," that may or may not be your grade. I go in always after everyone has finished the exam. I go through, I do analyses, I look at all of the items. I try to find if there were bad questions, if there were, any anomaly things. I look at the overall distribution, and what happens at the end of the day is I almost always end up curving those scores. But it takes a little bit of time. And just to clarify, I've never curved down. So if you scored 90%, there's no curve that's going to suddenly pull you down from that, only in the upward direction. But I just say that now so that you understand whatever feedback you get immediately after the exam isn't carved in stone, for what it's worth. Okay, so I've been talking at you now for over 20 minutes, so I kind of need to wrap this up. I guess the last thing I'll say right now, and I'll leave it at that until further stuff. As I alluded to a few moments ago about the person who maybe it's preferable to kind of work on their own. They're not as interested in any class. Probably the majority of the people in the class, you live in your life, you're doing your online courses, you're doing the work, And you're just not the type where maybe we're even going to exchange any direct communication via email or Zoom or something like that. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, if you're comfortable and independent, and as long as you're in a good place with what you're doing, you don't have to feel an obligation to do any of those things outside of the discussion forum. But there's a whole spectrum here too, right? And on the other end of the spectrum, you know, a lot of you, I know, I mean, I say a lot of you because in every course, every time, forever in the universe, this course is one a lot of people come in really not looking forward to it. I'm not a research person. I don't know a lot about it. I don't want to do it, and I just have to do this course. And I think there's an intimidation factor for some subset of folks. And what I'm trying to say right now is that if you're cool and independent and don't really want to interact with me, and that's fine. But on the other end, for those of you who would like to have some help, would like to have the engagement, would like to have more attention and time and a capacity to work together, know that I'm here for that too. And so really, I mean, the bumper sticker for this is like, I want to be as involved in this course with you as you want me to be. So I'll just need to know from you if you're a person who would like to have times to actually meet via Zoom. I don't have like official office hours. I found that never has worked well in this particular situation. So more or less just setting up times, being online and teaching this way affords me an extraordinary amount of flexibility. So even though you've got your job and your family and your other courses and everything happening in your life, we can always find a time to set up Zoom meetings, phone calls, emails. So I'm just saying, like, please don't be bashful, particularly in this course, because this is involved. There's a lot of moving parts. How many times have I said that? But, it does take a whole lot of investment to do a project like this. And you don't have to go it on your own. You don't have to don't do what I used to do as an undergraduate, basically is what I'm saying, which was I refused to ever reach out for any help. I just sat there and pulled my hair out, drank coffee until 4 a.m, and somehow cranked it out. Don't do that. Okay, that's enough for now because I'm surely at a half an hour or close to it. So last thing, welcome. I am excited to work with you this term. This is a big course. There's a lot happening, but it's one where we really do get to work in a very different way, relatively speaking, especially in an online environment. So I'm excited to work with you. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, once again, Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon.